Yo, this is Anton from Rust Limited, doing a slightly different devlog midweek. I wanted to show off some video that my colleague Luke and I shot from a research trip for the game that we took to Vegas last week. We basically we drove up both to visit some colleagues and to go to a place called Battlefield Vegas, which is this preposterously and wonderfully American attraction where you can basically go in and fire a absolutely insane selection of various military firearms. And so, especially after doing the M4 for H3, I realized how many little details were getting by me, that despite looking at photos, looking at video, looking at Wikipedia pages, I really needed some hands-on time with a larger number of firearms than I have fired in my life. And so, yeah, so thankfully got that opportunity. So what I decided I'd do here is just show you guys some of the footage that I shot. I had a GoPro strapped to my head right here, and just talk a little bit about what the experience was like, and talk about some of the properties that I want to try to get out of simulated representation of them. So pulling up our list, let's see what we shot here. So we started off with the VZ69 machine pistol, which is one of those guns that looks way cooler when you look at a picture of it than when you're actually holding it. It feels so dinky when you're holding it. I don't know if it's just the specific shape of it, the way it sort of tapers towards the front. The stock on the darn thing is useless. It's, you know, you can press it into your shoulder, but just how low you have to get your head to it, and just the overall dimensions of it. I was afraid that I was going to hurt someone with this sucker. Just it seemed preposterous to try to aim it. I don't even know why it has a stock. But fun nonetheless. You know, I've known servicemen who've had them overseas, have sort of, you know, gotten them as a unofficial sidearm, and I've heard the nickname a couple times, noisemaker, for them, because I can't imagine if you're more than about 15 feet from someone having much of a good time hitting something with it. So yeah, let's see what else. What's next? The HK MP5K. I've got to say, I would own one of these in a hot second if I could. It was the, you know, it's small, but it doesn't feel too small. It was remarkably controllable on fully auto. It was a blast. I've got a 3D model for this in pre-production. I still have to cut the damn thing apart and fix a bunch of things about it that are VR specific. But this is definitely on my near-term plate to get implemented, because this was just a blast. You can, in fact, karate chop down the bolt release just like in the movies, and it's just as fun as you would think it would be. So I definitely, when I implement it, I'm not sure whether I want to make that an action that requires the trigger or not. I may just make it so that I may try to detect the velocity of the controller, so you can just pass the interaction point, pass the bolt to knock it down. We'll have to see, because I don't want to create something where you can accidentally knock the bolt forward. But considering that that's just such a part of the identity of the readying and cycling in that weapon, I'm going to consider doing that. Let's see what else. So the M11, actually, well, in the video here, you're going to see me firing a MAC-10, which is 45 ACP. I wanted to fire the M11 380 because that's what I have a 3D model for, and this was one of those ones that, because I guess I had only ever seen a picture with one of them at a time, I wasn't aware of just how different in size they were. The M11 is tiny in a, like, how are you supposed to hold this properly and fire it fully automatic tiny. And even the MAC-10 is, just because there's nowhere on the floor you can safely hold it, you'll see in the video here, it's got this absolutely enormous compensator on it. And that's basically so that people have something to hold on to in the front of it so they can actually control it. You know, really high cycle rate. It was fun. Pretty quiet, all said and told, but that's probably just because of, you know, what it had on its fore. I've got a great model for this, so this is probably going in there soon. You know, quintessential spray and pray weapon. So then we have probably my favorite SMG of all time, which is a P90. I'm what can I say? I'm a silver 1 scrub. Actually, not technically, I was before the great D rank. I was in LEM for a little while, and I haven't gone back into CS since. But still use the P90 far more than an adult should, and it's even more fun in real life than in game. It is shockingly controllable. In the video here, I rip off like 22 or 25 rounds in it in one go, and it was amazing how easy it was to keep the muzzle on target. So once again, it's one of those. If I could own it, I think I would. It's an absolute blast. Let's see, and then, you know, I just had to, you know, civic duty to try out a Thompson. I must admit, the thing that really shocked me loading this was after, you know, sliding the magazine in and looking up at it, it seemed like such an incredibly loose and simple fit. I was kind of blown away to see how it operated. Didn't feel safe at all, especially relative to the, you know, the more modern firearms, but it's way heavier than you think it is if you've never held one, and it just feels wonderful. I love old firearms. You know, the more wood, the better, especially if it's just been handled a ton. So, you know, has a really great clanky feel to firing it. You know, that weight helps considering, you know, the cartridge that it's firing. But you know, not great for target shooting. You know, I'm glad it worked for our servicemen at the time. But it definitely, compared to a lot of the other things I was firing, it definitely feels the antique that it is. Yeah. And then on to, you know, in terms of the rifles, I got to try an FN Scar L, which was just incredible. You know, obviously I haven't taken any of these things into the field, so I'm sure, you know, folks who have are quite opinionated on exactly which modern, you know, sort of like NATO rifle that they prefer. But having now fired a couple, I think the Scar L is absolutely my favorite. I love its dimension set. Its cycle rate on full auto, it's a slower pace than I expected, and it almost sort of bounces with, you know, as it's firing, and so felt remarkably controllable, and you know, is different enough from, say, the M4's operation that I'm probably going to have to just write completely unique code for it. I think that's actually something that I realized from the whole trip. Was you know, in coding up all of these simulations, wondering if I was generalizing my classes enough, if there were ways in which I could reuse more code. And, you know, after firing 11 guns and seeing just how different every single one of them was, even in like the little details, I think I've probably hit peak generalization as I have it now, and we'll just have to really implement them all individually. Coming up next, let's see here. We got the Mauser 98K, which, my goodness, it's out of everything I fired. This is the only one that hurt to fire. And granted, I'm a bit of a, you know, I'm a wuss, you know, game developer here, no upper body strength or muscle mass to speak of. But I think also because of the fact, you know, no bipod or anything like that, and having to, you know, fire it standing, this one kissed rough. So, but absolutely gorgeous. It was really interesting seeing the way the integrated mag works. I'm still trying to decide whether I want to bother implementing a stripper clip, especially after seeing how rapid it was to load without a stripper clip, and the fact that if you're sort of inserting in you know, stripping rounds off a stripper clip into it, how that, you know, you can screw that up too. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I'll probably do it just because I want to. That's going to be really difficult as a VR interaction, and so I think there's useful science to be done. But yeah, I adored it. Super glad to be able to try it out. The Remington 700 was nothing special. You know, I just wanted to get another. I just wanted for just A/B comparison. It was on the list because I just wanted to do 2 bolt action rifles just to see if there was anything really sort of fundamentally different in the feel of it. And there, you know, nothing to the degree that it will really affect the way that I implement it. But yeah, you know, nothing to write home about otherwise. The Dragunov SVD was super fun to shoot, despite its incredibly. What I found interesting using the optic on this is it felt really difficult to get my head and eye exactly in the right spot to use it. And you got me in terms of what all of the markings inside the optic actually do. I'm sure I could look them up and such, but it was kind of like looking into the Swiss Army knife of rifle optics. But just using it made me feel like a Soviet assassin or something like that. It was neat. It has such a unique look and feel to it that it was a blast. And then the last 2, I didn't fire the M249 Para. My colleague Luke got that one, and just like I got to hold it and, you know, play with it a bit, and heavier than I expected. But from everything he said, that weight is part of what makes it so incredible. You can just 10 ring all day with it on full auto, and pretty terrifying. Pretty wild weapon. And then, of course, the last for me was this absolutely ridiculous. I saw it on the website and was like, duh, firing that. Probably putting it in my game. The M19A4 Beast Mode. It's a 1919 machine gun. They just chop the barrel so you get a lot more fire in the front of it. And that was a scream to fire. I'm going back to this place at some point. It's the first thing. It's maybe the first and the last thing I want to fire again there, because it's an absolute scream. The way when you got your shoulder pressed up into it, that your whole body shakes, and the sound of it, and the fire and the belt casings coming off. It was a delightful sensory experience and a wonderful cherry on the top of the whole trip. So I'm definitely going to put it in the game if I can find or adapt an appropriate model for it. So yeah, so that's all the guns that we fired. It was absolutely worth it as a trip, and of course, this is America, so of course there's like next to where there's casinos, and I think it was across from like a carnival or a zoo type thing. Of course, there's another place where it's like, well, just come in, fire some machine guns. Okay, cool. So that was, it's ridiculous, but delightful. So, and just, more than anything, disgustingly useful for me to get that sort of hands-on experience. And as I sort of collect and adapt further resources for this game, I'm probably going to make at least one trip back just to try out further weapons, or the closest one that they have to what I want to implement, just so that I don't miss anything stupid. It's been interesting just from firing these, seeing how many things, just seeing the degree to which most video games don't represent the machine itself, the implement, and the very little of the nuance and the handling ever comes through, because it's just in the lower right of your screen. You hit R to reload it. There's nothing really to worry about. So yeah, and it's one of the things that continues to be fascinating for me with this, is just getting that simulated bodily experience with the weapon, and seeing what carries through with this level of fidelity. So yeah, so I'll stop rambling now. Thanks for watching this. I'll Hope you enjoyed seeing some of the footage and seeing my fat ass firing these things. And I'll see you guys at the end of the week with the next devlog update. Peace.